we brought EJ in, who, if you don't know, hosts the Bootleg podcast with Brett Coleman. They break down football in ways that people who understand football do. So kind of the opposite of what Tom and I do here. And EJ knows college players, knows the draft. So I wanted to get you on the show to start talking about different prospects coming out. Basically, so I don't have to do the research on my own.
Sure. I'll give you the answers to the test. It's just like high school.
You're just like,
yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So today we thought about maybe talking about wide receivers, because both our teams, the Packers and Broncos, could be interested. Also, I wanted to start with receivers because it's not as deep, top end heavy of a class as the last couple of years. And I usually think that's where you can find the gems, is when nobody's talking about the position group. That's where, and it's especially my team doesn't pick till the third freaking round. So I kind of need the deep sleepers, EJ. Who do you like? Who's your guy right now as a receiver?
Oh, it's a great question. It really depends on fit. Like, so much of any rookie's production in the NFL is where they land. It's all about fit. So if I am a team like, say I'm a team like Seattle, and I already have DK and Lockett, and I'm looking for a really good third receiver, I'm looking for something very different than if I'm a team like, say, close your ears, Tom, Bears, that has no receivers, right? That has Darnell Mooney and not a lot else on the roster. I could really take anything and it would be an addition. So different players. But if I'm looking at guys at the top, yeah, we won't even talk about the offense that Greg Roman ran or town around.
Oh yeah, we're gonna again. Greg Roman, training staff, terribleness. Ty, I'll get you on the clip afterwards. I don't want to interrupt EJ.
It's okay, Tom. And so for wide receivers, there's some really good receivers, and I think your assessment of the class or what you took from somebody else about the assessment of the class is dead on. It lacks the alpha types. There are not, if you need that DeAndre Hopkins guy that you are going to throw to on 3rd and 8, and he's going to go out and win every single time. There are less of those. Doesn't mean it's not a deep class. There are a lot of talented guys down throughout the rounds who are going to be able to contribute in a way to a sort of diverse wide receiver room. So I like the class overall, but it doesn't have those few top end stars. And Greg Cassell just came out and said that yesterday or today. And I was like, we've been saying that for like a month. Glad somebody who's really, really smart agrees with me.
Yeah, Greg is great.
So
but he didn't want to come on the show today. So
hey, I'll take his seconds. Like if it's Greg Cassell seconds, like I'm all about it.
Perna, I can't with you. So EJ, what you're telling me is that if the Green Bay Packers do wind up getting let's just say pick 13, an additional first round pick. Maybe with the 15th overall pick, maybe they take a look at this game right here. A lot of Packers fans who are looking at him right now and saying, because I think they'll go edge. Like
that's CJ Stroud.
Yep, that's CJ Stroud, Brandon.
That's CJ Stroud's favorite person in the world. Or second favorite person in the world behind Marvin Harrison Jr., but still. What Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver from Ohio State, did at the combine this weekend was, I think, a validation. There are sort of 3 performances at the combine. Completely flamed out and did way worse than we expected. Came in and did as we expected. We call that confirming priors, right? We thought this, and yes, that's the way he looks. Or holy crap, we weren't expecting that, and they did way better than that. And that's the Anthony Richardsons of the world who, we expected the athleticism. We didn't necessarily expect the entire package. He apparently blew away the interviews as well. And really, those are the guys that quote unquote elevate their stock or are risers, as much as you might dislike that term. Jackson Smith-Njigba came in and said, yeah, I caught all those passes for a reason when I was healthy. I am incredibly quick. I have great hands. I am tremendous after the catch. Yeah, I might not be a burner, but I'm going to be a really good NFL wide receiver from like moment one. Yes.
Who's a deep fade ball guy the Broncos could draft in the 3rd round?
See, that's the thing. It's the 3rd round. And I love this because, like you said, I love the deep cuts in the draft. I love sleepers. I love UDFAs. That's kind of my jam. So I had to look down the range and go, oh, when are the Broncos picking? Oh, no. No,
We got
no.
2 at the top of the third.
I was like, okay, so
Unless
we got
trade
yeah.
Cortland Sutton. Who knows?
Yeah, and there's smoke about that. We'll talk about that. But so if Cortland Sutton gets traded, I think it's an if at this point. I don't think it's any kind of guarantee. But if they did, they would have a hole in their wide receiver room because they got a new coach too. I think you probably heard about that. And Peyton likes his holy trinity of wide receivers. He likes the one all-arounder, which in his time in New Orleans was Michael Thomas.
Yep.
He likes one biggish outside contested catch guy, which is really the guy we're kind of talking about in this role here. That was Marquez Callaway for a while. It was Traquan Smith. And then he likes one blazer. He likes to have one guy that can absolutely just run the seam and take the top off the defense. He had Ted Ginn Jr. later in his tenure, but he had some other guys earlier. And he likes to have that diversity in his wide receiver core. If you look at his offenses from his time in New Orleans, which is a long time, that's what he likes to have. So if Sutton goes, they have those other 2 roles in Denver, but they would really need that sort of biggish outside contested catch guy. So down in the round 3 to round 5 range, Antoine Green from North Carolina is a guy like he's 6'1", he's 199. Got my attention at the Shrine Bowl practices. He was Drake May's sort of other receiver. Drake May, great quarterback at UNC. Josh Downs was the highlight in that offense with Sam Howell and then again with Drake May. But Antoine Green was like, man, this guy, he plays even a little bit bigger than his 6'1". He's making some catches. He's not super loud on film, but he's really consistent. And he could, neither was Marquez Callaway when he was in college. So those are the kind of guys you're looking for. Michael Wilson from Stanford made a huge splash at the Senior Bowl with his routes. He's struggled with health at Stanford. He's 6'1", 213. He had a great Senior Bowl, but he struggled with injuries. So he might be there in round 3. I think probably that's a legitimate thing in this class is you picking your flavor of wide receiver, and a guy like that might be in the Broncos range. Might.
I'd be if I'm the Broncos, I'd be very scared to draft a guy with injury concerns.
Why? The Broncos are never injured.
Injured teams on earth every year.
5 Point Vid said that the Broncos had no injuries last year. So you're telling me that he was wrong?
Just zip it, please.
So you and the Chargers, right there with your. Anyways, we won't do that. Cedric Tillman from Tennessee, who is, again, the other guy. There's a lot of other guys in this draft. Jalen Hyatt is the guy at Tennessee, Hendon Hooker's main deep threat, big speed guy. Everybody's looking at the shiny thing, which is Jalen Hyatt. And Cedric Tillman's on the other side. Now, he's got good size, 6'3", 213. He was in Jalen Hyatt's shadow, but he has really solid tape. He is a good player. He could fill that contested catch role. He will be there in that 3rd to 5th round range, so the Broncos could go after a guy like that. But we can't leave Grossi out. We talked about receivers for the Broncos. We should talk about a couple for the Packers. And the Packers are actually...
Suck it, Brandon. We talked about your stupid team.
Right. We gave you time. Okay, no, Packers are a little bit easier because they tend to adhere to a historical threshold a little bit more than a team like the Broncos or a little bit more than a lot of other teams at wide receivers. But the historical threshold for wide receivers for the Packers is 6 foot, 200 pounds. It'd be 6 foot, 200 pounds. They've taken like one guy under 6 foot and like 3 or 4 guys under 200 pounds, but like 2 of them were 196 or 197. Yeah. So right at. They also tend to like linear speed. They fall for guys that are fast in a straight line. They love it. And they will take chances, much to Tom's disappointment, on guys with less than stellar hands. They are okay with some drops because they like the big plays. They are likely losing one of their best run blocking wide receivers in Alan Lazard.
They're
good
losing.
Size.
They're 100% losing him.
As long as they don't lose him to Chicago, I am 100% okay with that.
Why? You don't want him?
No.
Why? He could be your wide receiver 1, just like Equinemius St. Brown. Remember all the Bears fans after week 1 when he got that one touchdown?
No.
And they were just like, oh, thanks so much, Packers. And that was the only touchdown he scored all season. I remember. Oh, I remember.
I know you remember.
Oh,
you remember good. I'm having Mad Max 3 flashbacks.
EJ, but I have to disagree with you though, because they have drafted some stellar wide receivers like Amari Rodgers, who has really just like set the bar for what wide receivers could be. But I'm gonna throw out a hot take for you, EJ. I'm gonna throw out a hot take, and then we can get into some wide receivers.
I'll take it.
If Aaron Rodgers gets traded and we get the 13th overall pick from the Jets, I'm over in like the 90% percentile that I think the Packers would draft a wide receiver with one of those picks. I am really, really think that they would. because
that is not a lukewarm take given their history. That is a hot take.
For Packers, for the Packers.
That is a hot take.
Because we get all our studs in the second round, right? Like Christian Watson, he looked great, but Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, all second rounders. So I'm just saying, if they get 2, so they get the 13th and the 15th, I would not be surprised if they swing for a wide receiver. There's a lot of reasons why, but yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised by that either, because again, that would mean Aaron Rodgers leaving, and you do want to do the thing where you build support around your younger quarterback and say, hey, we're going to make your job easier. We were okay with flogging Aaron and giving him limited talent because he's Aaron, but you're not Aaron, and we recognize that, and here's some help so that we don't all look stupid. Yes.
Question. Two-parter. If the Packers, let's say they can get the first receiver off the board in the draft, who's the number 1 receiver right now?
Oh, we had this discussion last night while recording Bootleg, and Zay Flowers is Brett's number 1 wide receiver on the board. Zay Flowers out of Boston College, guy we interviewed at the Shrine Bowl, guy I like a lot and may end up being my number 1 when it's all said and done. But I said I haven't done enough work to really stack what I have as like 3 or 4 guys at the top and say that's my guy.
So
if Zay's my guy,
you do more study than Brett, is what I heard.
Sorry,
I heard you do a little more work than Brett.
Oh, I don't know about that. That guy is, yeah, we were talking about last night, both of our schedules and trying to fit things in and burning the candle at both ends and then lighting the midnight oil on fire. And what happens then? Like, it's just an inferno. It's really bad. So Zay Flowers is up there for sure. Quentin Johnson is a name that a lot of people have up there as, had some great tape at TCU. People are a little bit worried about the hands. So, if we're talking about Packer historical trends, it could be okay. But, in terms of other wide receivers that might be in that conversation, people are talking about Jordan Addison. I don't tend to think he's in that top conversation.
I haven't heard any Jackson Smith. I have not heard any.
Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, is going to be one of those players that people forgot about. He got injured. He didn't have a lot of production. Well, he had massive production, and then his production dropped off. But when I get to Jackson Smith and Jigba, I actually listen to the voices that are a lot closer to him than me, like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And when the 3 of them sit in a room and somebody says, Kirk Herbstreit says, okay, who's the best athlete among the 3 of you? And they all go, that it's that guy. And he goes, yeah, it's me, which is such a wide receiver thing to do. It's me. And then they go, and he goes, okay, who's the best receiver? Because he's clearly looking for another answer. And they still go. Now, these are the 2 guys that were the front runners for Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL with quarterback situations, both turning around and going, no, it's clearly him. And he's going, it is. And if you watch him, this is why the Jarvis Landry comps really got under my skin, because I think that comp was half correct, 50% correct, which is up until the catch point. He's very similar, because Jarvis Landry, people forget, was and somewhat is, not anymore, but very skilled in getting to the point where he caught the ball and catching the ball. After that point, Jackson Smith and Jigba is a completely different animal than Jarvis Landry. Like, his ability to make yards after the catch with that insane 10-yard split, his feel for the passing game, especially with his back to the defense in zone. You see him spin away from players and make lots of extra yards all the time. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Jarvis Landry very rarely did that when he caught the ball stationary. Jackson Smith and Jigba does it all the time. Like, 8 out of 10 receptions, that's what you see from him. So I feel like it was I don't want to say it was a lazy comp. It was just a half correct comp, people focusing on one part that reminded them of another player, which is why comps are always difficult. But after that, Jackson Smith and Jigba, great receiver, will go in the first round as long as teams are comfortable with the medical. Now, we don't know what they found in me. All the doctors look at them. Some teams are going to say, yep, it's great, no problem, because they would say that after someone stepped out of a car crash. Yeah. And other teams are going to go, first round, look, we're picking top 15. There's a huge bust rate on wide receivers. We like this guy a lot, but there's this other position of need who's much safer. We're just going to do that. It's not anti Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's just pro, holy crap, that guy's sitting there. We didn't think he was going to be, and we really need him.